After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learns astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions. And after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology, for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. Welcome to Shastikara's Astrological series. As usual, for the past 6 to 7 years, I am posting a number of videos in my YouTube channel, and which are free for most of them. And apart from that, earlier to that, I did post some scribed articles in the scribed website, and which I came to know that people are getting charged for downloading my articles. Recently, I started a website www.karraastrology.com. I'll repeat again, www.karraastrology. Karra Astrology is all one word. Karraastrology.com is my new website, and most of the information pertaining to me, whether it is in the articles in the WordPress or in Scribd or the recent YouTube presentations that had been posted in my channel, all of those are available in my website. And apart from that, I started a new paid consultation, and the payments will be when I tell what is my fees. The payment should be paid either to an orphanage in India. I will provide the address for that payment details, or to the homeless center here in New Jersey. So for those who are residing in India, they will be paying to an orphanage in Hyderabad, and for those who are residing outside India, they have to pay to a homeless center here in New Jersey. So if you are interested to get paid consultation, please visit my website and click the contact me button, and then provide all the information over there. To the extent possible, I will be responding at the most within 3 to 5 business days. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that you will like my presentations, and this is some presentation which I'm going to post it within as soon as I can. Welcome to Shastikara's Astrological series. This presentation is exclusively about the astrological analysis of the death of one of the famous uh, TV host here in United States. But the specialty of this presentation is that while doing the astrological analysis, I had used different methods to justify why the event has happened from an astrological perspective. Like, I had used the standard Vimsottari Dasa on the D1 chart, and then I had used the transit analysis, and then I had used the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, and using the Tajaka Annual charts. I had used the Mudda Dasa and Patyayini Dasa, the two Dasa systems, which you can tell what can happen in a particular year. So this particular presentation is exclusively doing an analysis of an event that has already happened using the techniques that are available. The same techniques can be used to predict any event, future event, possibility for an event to happen. So I'm hoping that all those who are watching this presentation understand the technique that I had used it, and they can use it to predict it, use the same technique, and then try to predict what can happen for any of their clients or natives or their friends. Back to the article, this particular native was born in 1933 November 19th. He is one of the famous TV artists here in United States and died recently, that is on 23rd January 2021. It's like 2 days ago. Today is 25th January, so 2 days ago he died. So I'm using his birth chart. Fortunately, I was able to get his exact birth details from Astro Data Bank. So using that exact birth details that I got it from Astro Data Bank, I was able to generate that birth chart, and then I'm here using the same birth chart that I generated using JHora software. I'm trying to analyze the astrological reason why this event had happened from different perspectives of viewed it from different perspectives, like the Vimsottari Dasa system, the Bihuru Chakra Paddhati, the transit analysis, and then using the Tajaka annual charts, the Mudda Dasa and Patyayini Dasas. And I hope you will like this presentation too. As I said earlier, the very first thing I do is to take the D1 chart and then look at what can I gather, what information can I gather, the important astrological points that I can gather just by looking at the D1 chart without trying to analyze anything. When you look at this native's D1 chart, born on 19th November 1933 at 10:30 a.m. in Brooklyn, New York, the very first and the foremost thing that you see here is this particular native is having Kala Sarpa Yoga. So a lot of people unfortunately assume that this particular Kala Sarpa Yoga is something bad, and there are some people who unfortunately deceive the innocents and charge huge amounts of money, saying that they can take away this Kala Sarpa Yoga from their birth chart. It's all cheat, deceiving people. Kala Sarpa Yoga is not a bad yoga. The only thing that you can see as in Kala Sarpa Yoga is there will be a lot of ups and downs in the native's life, and very soon I'm going to have a detailed presentation about Kala Sarpa Yoga, how that yoga has resulted in a lot of ups and downs in a native's life. Back to this particular native's chart, as the first one is the native has a Kala Sarpa Yoga, and the next important thing that I noticed is there are 3 planets that are in Rasi Sandhi. If you look at it, it's Mercury, Sun and Moon are all in Rasi Sandhi, and of course Rahu, the north node, is also in Rasi Sandhi. So when 4 of the important planets are in Rasi Sandhi, especially when Rahu is in Rasi Sandhi and there is a Kala Sarpa Yoga, it is very difficult to tell exactly where this particular natives, in which part of it this particular native will there be chaos, or which part of the particular native's life is more dynamic. It's very difficult to tell because of the Rahu being in a Rasi Sandhi. Apart from Rahu, you have Sun, Mercury and Moon also in Rasi Sandhi. And then next thing, the most another important thing that I noticed here is, since Rahu is in the third house, its direct aspect is on the ninth house. So ninth house deals with Bhagyasthanamo and Dharmasthanamo. Because it is a Kalasarpa Yoga and Rahu is having a direct aspect on the ninth house, so something pertaining to Dharmasthanamo or Bhagyasthanamo will be extremely dynamic. So if you take the ninth house as Bhagyasthanamo, the native's financial life the financial situation for this particular native in his whole life will be filled with ups and downs. That means the native may be extremely rich, all of a sudden will have some problems, and again will be rich, like that. If you take Dharmasthanamo as as the bhava that the Rahu is going to spoil, then something adharma the native will be doing, will be involved in some sort of an adharma in his whole life. So this is the, from a high level perspective, this is what we can see when it comes to the D1 chart. Now as time goes by, I'm going to take, since this particular presentation is only about the sudden death of the native, I'm not considering any other parts, any events in his life apart from the last event, the end of life, which I'm going to talk more in detail now. Now let me start analyzing the D1 chart. I just analyzed the D1 chart in earlier. Now let's go and see, supersede it with the Vimsottari Dasa on the date he died. It was on January 23rd. So if you look at the Vimsottari Dasa, the Mahadasa is Saturn Mahadasa, Mercury Antardasa, Sun Pratyantara Dasa, Rahu Sukshmantara Dasa, and probably it will be the Ketu sub part of the Sukshmantara Dasa. So if you look at it, the most important is Saturn, Mercury, Sun and Rahu. These are the important planets here. So Saturn, if you look from the Rashi Lagna, Saturn is the second house lord, Marakasthanadipati, and he is residing in the second house itself, in its own house, which is Capricorn. So natal Saturn is residing in second house, lord is residing in the second house. So it will be having a from second house. If you take the Saturn's direct aspect, it is on the 8th house, which is the Mrityusthanam, the owner of the Saturn, the 8th house lord from Rashi Lagna is Chandra, moon. And if you look, now let's go and look at the position of the 8th house lord. The 8th house lord is in the first house, or in the 12th house from Saturn. That means this particular native is going through the permanent third phase of the Sadeshini, because Saturn is in the second house from moon. The native is going permanent Sadeshini. That Saturn second house deals with Dharma, Dhanasthanam and Kutumbasthanamo. Like I said earlier, while Rahu is spoiling either the Bhagyasthanamo or the Dharmasthanamo for the native, Saturn, because of the Saturn's position is in the second house from natal moon, Saturn will be spoiling either the Kutumbasthanamo or Dhanasthanamo for this particular native. And this is just a quick noticing the position based on the position of the Saturn. And then comes the next one is the 8th house. Saturn's direct aspect is on the 8th house, which is moon, which I have said earlier. And then comes the Mercury. Mercury is the 7th house lord. While Saturn is the second house lord, Mercury is the 7th house lord, that is another Marakasthanadipati. And if you look at it, Mercury is residing in the 12th house, is residing in the 12th house from Rashi Lagna or Chandra Lagna. Either of the one, Mercury is residing in the 12th house. 12th house is Moksha Sthanam, end of life. So when the 7th house lord is residing in the 12th house, and the second house lord Saturn is having a direct aspect on the 8th house, then the combination for an unfortunate event like an end of life happening will be in the Saturn Mahadasa and Mercury, the 7th house lord, or the 8th house lord Antardasa. Of course, Saturn Mahadasa, Saturn Antardasa is also possible. So the three possibilities: Saturn Mahadasa, Saturn Antardasa is the first possibility, Saturn Mahadasa and Mercury Antardasa is second possibility, Saturn Mahadasa and Moon Antardasa is the third possibility. Here Mercury Antaradasa started in January 2020, and it's going to stay for 2 years 9 months. So the second possibility is extremely high, that which is Saturn Mahadasa and Mercury Antardasa. And then we'll go a little bit down, further down, to see the actual event happen. When the actual event happened, what are the other sub planets Mahadasa Antardasas running? Sun Pratyantara Dasa started 9th of January, recently, and it is there all the way till 26th of February. That means almost for 45 days Sun Pratyantara Dasa is running there. That means Sun, and Sun is already co-joined with the 12th house Lord, co-joined with the 7th house Lord Mercury in the 12th house. Okay, so, and remember, both Sun and Mercury are in Rasi Sandhis. So if you take that one, then the Sun and Mercury is swinging between the 11th house and the 12th house. And Sun, if it is considered to be in the 11th house, then it is in a Nicha, which is Libra. Libra is a Nicha for the Sun. So Mercury is the only one that will be active if you consider Mercury in the Libra or the 11th house. So the next one is Rahu. Yeah, Rahu is also in Rasi Sandhi, but since Rahu, wherever we ignoring the Rasi Sandhis, from Rahu, wherever he is in the 3rd house, it has a direct aspect on the house owned by Sun, and Sun is in the 12th house, co-joined with the 7th house Lord Mercury. So when you look at the combination, Rahu is the terminator, Mercury is the 7th house Lord, Saturn is the 2nd house Lord, having a direct aspect on the 8th house, and the Sun, who is in the 12th house, has co-joined with the 7th house Lord. So the possibility for this particular event to happen at this time is because of the when you look in the Vimsottari Dasa, it is the Sun Pratyantara Dasa and Rahu Sukshmantara Dasa are the ones that had initiated when you with respect to Vimsottari Dasa. Now let me go a little bit further and look at the second part. So once we know that according to the Vimsottari Dasa, the event possibility is there, the next step is to look into the transit analysis. Since we know the event has already happened, we can go into the transit analysis and justify it. If the event hasn't happened and there is and if you know that when the possibility for an event to happen, then you generate the transit analysis for that particular year and do exactly the same analysis that I am doing right now for this particular event. Let me now start analyzing the same chart using transit analysis. If you look at the date of death is 23rd January 2021. On that day, let me go and see where are the transit planets. If you look at it, transit Mars is in Aries, its own house. Transit Rahu and transit Moon are in Taurus. Transit Jupiter, transit Saturn, transit Sun and transit Mercury, 4 planets are in Capricorn. And since transit Rahu is in Taurus, transit Ketu will be in Scorpio. So this is the transit planet positions during on 22nd or 23rd of January 2021. And now let's go and look at in the news I read that the Neetu was admitted in hospital 1 week before his death. That is from 23rd, if you take 7 days backwards, it will be 15th, 16th or 16th of January. So on 15th January 2021, transit Moon is in Aquarius. That is where natal Rahu is residing. So on 15th January, the Neetu got hospitalized. At that point, transit Moon is co-joined with natal Rahu. That's the number one. And the Jupiter transit, the 4 transit planets are in Capricorn at least since 12th of January, because Sun and Mercury entered Capricorn. Sun enters Makara, which is Capricorn, on between 12th to 14th of January every year. And when Sun enters Makara, Mercury follows him. So Sun, Mercury are in Capricorn, Makara, from 13th of January. Jupiter entered Capricorn in November 2020. Saturn is in Capricorn since December 2019. So on 15th of January 2021, transit Moon is in Aquarius, co-join with natal Rahu, transit Jupiter, transit Saturn, transit Sun, and transit Mercury. All the four are in Capricorn, co-join with natal Saturn. Capricorn is the second house from both Rashi Lagna and Chandra Lagna. Second house is Marakasthanamu. Second house lord is Saturn, Marakasthana Adhipati, and natal Saturn is residing in the second house. So the second house became extremely powerful. And when four transit planets are co-joined in the second house with the most extremely powerful Marakasthana Adhipati Saturn, the event has got amplified. And then when you look at Rahu and transit Moon residing in the 6th house, they have a direct aspect on the 12th house. 12th house is hospitalization, and in the 12th house you have natal Sun and natal Mercury. Sun by default is just a 9th house lord, so we can ignore Sun. But natal Mercury is the 7th house lord. 7th house is another Marakasthanamu, and so natal Mercury is Marakasthanadhipati residing in the 12th house. When Marakasthanadhipati is residing in the 12th house, indicates that the end of life is possible only after being hospitalized. That is the first and the foremost thing. That's exactly what happened to this native. And now transit Rahu is having a direct aspect on the 12th house. So the hospitalization, for the reason which is a transit Rahu is in the 6th house, right? So the 6th house is Rogasthanamo. So the disease for which the native will get hospitalized, that disease is completely unknown. It's a unknown disease, or a disease that is known but cannot be cured. So that's exactly what happened to this native. He was hospitalized because of COVID-19. A COVID-19 is an unknown disease or a disease that has there's no cure yet for that disease, at least as of 23rd January 2021. Now the another important thing that we have to look at is the transit Mars. The reason why I'm emphasizing on Mars is because natal Mars is the lord of the 12th house, and he is in the 1st house. So natal Mars residing in the 1st house will have a direct aspect on the 7th house and the 8th house. 7th house is Mercury, and natal Mercury is residing in the house owned by Mars. So there's a bondage between Mars and Mercury. And natal Mars 8th aspect is on the house owned by Moon, and Mars and Moon, they both are in the 1st house. So you can see that Mars has such a close bondage between the 7th house lord and the 8th house lord. That's the reason why I picked the position of natal transit Mars here, especially in the month of January 2021. And here transit Mars is in Aries, and from Aries, if you look at it, the 8th aspect is on the 12th house, its own house. Look, transit Rahu is having a direct aspect on the 12th house. Transit Mars is having the 8th aspect on the 12th house, and it owns the 12th house. So by looking at the transit planets and the houses in the natal chart, where the natal planets are owning the houses, and the transit planets superimposing on any of those natal planets, you can clearly say that then the event that has happened on 23rd January is clearly understandable from an astrological perspective. So this clearly tells you that when you are analyzing using a transit analysis for any event that might happen in future, when you want to predict it, these are the steps that you have to look at it. You have to look at the natal planets and then the transit planets and the bondage between the natal and the transit planets, their houses, based upon the aspects or any of other such things. After looking at the planetary positions of the transit analysis, what the next step that I usually do is to go to the Bihurug Chakra Paddhati. Since the event is already known, go to the event period in Bihurug Chakra Paddhati, look at the cycle ruler and which houses does the cycle ruler activate. Here the event happened on January 2021. So according to Bihurug Chakra Paddhati, Rahu is the cycle ruler and Rahu activates the fourth house, both from its natal position and from Rashi Lagna. And now let's go and look at Rahu. Rahu is in the third house. So from there, if you look at the natal fourth house, the fourth house is the sixth house from Rashi Lagna and Chandra Lagna. So the fourth house from natal Rahu position is the sixth house from Rashi Lagna and Chandra Lagna. And 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. So that's exactly where transit Rahu is residing. So when natal Rahu activates the house, transit Rahu is activates the sixth house, which is the Rogasthanamo. Transit Rahu is already there, having the sixth house got further highly amplified, activated, and transit Rahu is already looking at the 12th house. So you can understand that the event, what are the possible event that can happen is the native being stuck with some sort of a disease and get hospitalized. That's all you can expect from Rahu activating the fourth house. The next one is from Rashi Lagna. Rahu, the fourth house gets activated, which is the house owned by Jupiter. Jupiter is Lagnadipati from Rashi Lagna and Chandra Lagna. So whatever the event that Rahu has activated from fourth house from its natal position, that event will be directly related to the native self, because it's the first house lord is getting activated. And the third option that you have to see is what is the Mahadasa at the time when Rahu has activated the fourth house. Remember the current Mahadasa is Saturn Mahadasa, Mahadasa in Vimsottari Mahadasa period. So from Saturn, if you take the fourth house, 2, 3, 4, the fourth house is Aries. Aries is the fourth house from Saturn. And when that Saturn activates that fourth house, transit Mars is residing there, and its 8th aspect is again on the 12th house, its own house. So the 12th house got highly activated. So natal Rahu has activated the 6th house. Transit Rahu, which is residing in the 6th house, has having a direct aspect on the 12th house, and because Saturn activated the house owned by Mars and transit Mars is residing there, it has, and its 8th aspect is on the 12th house. So finally 6 and 12 houses got highly activated. So naturally the planets that are residing in those two houses are the ones that are going to give the outcome. And in 6th house it is empty, fortunately, but in the 12th house you have the 7th house lord, Marakasthanadipati Mercury is residing there. And that might be the reason why in the month of January, when look from the Bihurug Chakra Paddhati, something that is pertaining to 6th house, 7th house and 12th house is sure to happen. That's what we can predict from Bihurug by looking at the Bihurug Chakra Paddhati only. After validating an event, why the event happened from an astrological perspective using the Vimsottari Dasa system, the transit analysis, the Bihurug Chakra Paddhati, the next step that one can do, if the time of birth is assumed to be correct, then the next step one can do is go through the Sudarshana Chakra Dasa and see which houses are getting activated during as per Sudarshan Chakra Dasa, and the house lords and the house lords natal position, and of course the transit position also is needed. So let's go and look at, for this particular native, as per the Sudarshana Chakra Dasa, it's the 8th cycle that is running, that started in March 2017 for this particular native, and in the 8th cycle the 4th house Mahadasa started in March 2020 and it will last for 1 year. So the 4th house, let's look at the Mahadasa first. The 4th house from is Jupiter. Lord is Jupiter. Jupiter is residing in the 10th house, and it's not only the Jupiter is not only the 4th house Lord. Jupiter is also the first house Lord. So during this Mahadasa period, when the 4th house Mahadasa is running, the whatever events that happen will be pertaining to the self, because Jupiter is Lord of both the 1st and the 4th houses. And then next thing is the Antardasa. The event happened. When the event happened, the Antardasa is the 2nd house Antardasa running. That started on 26th December and lasted until 25th January 2021. So the 2nd house Antardasa is running, and we know that in 2nd house is the Marakasthanamo. The Marakasthanadipati Saturn is natal Saturn is residing in the 2nd house. And then, so what's the relation between Jupiter and Saturn is what we have to find out. Since Saturn is residing in Capricorn, you go and look at the transit planets. Transit Jupiter entered Capricorn in November 2020, or end of this November 2020. So when the Mahadasa 2nd house Antardasa started, Jupiter is already in the 2nd house Marakasthanamo, co-joined with the Marakasthanadipati, both natal and transit Saturns. So when the Mahadasa is running and the Jupiter Antardasa came, that's when the event got amplified. And during at the same time when that event got amplified, you have the Sun and Mercury residing in the same house. While Sun has no impact, Mercury means the 7th house Lord. So the 7th house Lord, the 2nd house Lord, and the 1st house Lord, all the three are in the same house, and that might be the reason why the event has happened as per the Sudarshana Chakra Dasa systems. Now here I am going to look at 2 more new Dasa systems. The first one is called Mudda Dasa. While Vimsottari Dasa is spanned over 120 years, Mudda Dasa is spanned over 365 days. It's a compressed version of Vimsottari Dasa, calculated in a different format. And for those type, when you are looking at the Mudda Dasa, the one that you have to look at is the Tajaka Annual chart, which you can get it from the Jehora software. The chart you can get it from Jehora software. The Dasas calculations also you can get it from Jehora software. So I'm not going to explain how we got this Dasa system. And now if you look at the Tajaka Annual chart, transit Saturn is in Capricorn, its own house, co-joined with the Moon, and Moon is the 7th house Lord from if you take Chandra Lagna, Moon is the 7th house Lord. So the 7th house Lord Marakasthanadipati has co-joined with Saturn, and they both are having a direct aspect on the 7th house. That clearly tells you that something related to Marakasthanamo, Maraka, is sure to happen during this annual by looking at the Tajaka Annual chart. Now let's go and see, is the Mudda Dasa supporting it or not. If the Dasa system doesn't support it, the event will not happen. So now if you look at it, according to Mudda Dasa system, Saturn Mahadasa started on December 31st and will last all the way till February 25th. Remember, transit Saturn is already in the Capricorn co-join, and since December 2019. So the whole year 2020, Saturn is still there. And now, but the Mahadasa of the Saturn according to Mudda Dasa started only on 1st of January 2021. So that's the reason why, even though there were so other possibilities from a planetary combinations, the possibility for the event to happen is there. Since the Dasa system did not support it, the event did not happen. But once the Mudda Dasa, Saturn Mahadasa according to Mudda Dasa has started, the event got amplified. And if you can look at it, if I remember correctly, the native became sick somewhere in the around 10th or 12th of January, and then got admitted in the hospital around 13th or 14th of January. So if you look at it, the 13th or 14th of January, first of all, around 10th of January is the in Saturn Mahadasa, the Antardasa is again Saturn. So from up to 10th of January, it is the Saturn Antardasa. So the native's health has to start deteriorating, and then came the Mercury. Mercury is the sixth house lord here in Tajaka Annual chart. So the disease got amplified, and between 9th of January and 17th of January is when the disease got amplified, Rogasthanamo, and that's when the Netu was being pushed when admitted to the hospital, and then the event happened during the Venus Antaradasa, and Venus is the fourth house lord, fourth, and then 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th house lord. Venus is in the 10th house lord too, and from Saturn the 10th aspect is on the 10th house where Venus and Mercury, they both are residing. You can see here from Saturn, the 10th aspect of Saturn is on Libra where Venus and Mercury are both residing. So the Mercury is the sixth house lord. That's when the event got amplified and made the Netu to get admitted in the hospital, and by Venus Antaradasa came, the Netu's health got deteriorated completely, and the Netu died on 23rd of January 2020. There is another Dasa system called Patyayini Dasa system, which you do it using the Tajaka Annual charts. It is similar. Dasa system is very close to the one like Mudda Dasa, which is compressed for one particular year. That's why it is called the annual chart. Tajak annual charts are used for this purpose. The same annual chart you can use it, the one that you use for the Mudda Dasa, but the Dasa system is different. Here, this rather than using the Buddha Dasa system, we are using the Patyayini Dasa system. In the Patyayini Dasa system, for this particular Netu, on 5th January, the Moon Mahadasa started. If you look at it, Moon is the 7th house lord. So the 7th house lord Mahadasa started on 5th of January. And then from 10th of January, the 6th house lord Mercury's Antardasa started. So the 7th house lord Mahadasa, 6th house lord Antardasa, and then on 22nd till 24th of January, those 2 days, 22nd, 23 and 24. So those 2.5 days, Moon Pratyantara Dasa is there. That means again the 7th house lord Pratyantara Dasa is there. And when you go a little bit deeper, the possibility for the event to happen was somewhere on 23rd January, somewhere between 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. in the night time, because it's a Saturn's Sukshmantara Dasa. Even though Jupiter Sukshmantara Dasa might have initiated it, but the activation was finalized during the Saturn Sukshmantara Dasa. So if you look at the Patyayini Dasa system, it's the 7th house lord Mahadasa, 6th house lord Antardasa, 7th house lord Pratyantara Dasa, and Saturn, who is in the 1st house lord residing. These are all from Chandralagana. So the 1st house lord Sukshmantara Dasa has activated this particular event, and that's the reason why then this is an astrological justification of why this particular event has happened on 23rd January 2021. Finally, let me conclude the astrological techniques that one can use it either to analyze a past event or predict a future event. The first and the foremost thing that I would analyze it is to start with the D1 chart, analyze the D1 chart, and then proceed to the Vimsottari Dasa system, analyze the Dasa system, the Mahadasa, Antardasa, Pratyantara Dasa, planets and their positions, their natal positions, and their houses that they own, their aspect, they reside. If the event has already happened, then you can analyze user Dasa and get a predictable period, and then once you get the predictable period, you can go to and analyze the transit planets during that predictable period. And once you know the predictable period, you will know what is the age of that particular native. Then go to Behurug Chakra Paddhati and see who is the cycle ruler and which house that the cycle ruler activates, and then you can analyze it or predict it based upon that. And once you know the period, and if you are very narrow it down to the annual level, then you can use the Tajaka Annual charts, generate the Tajaka Annual charts using the Jihora software. That's how I do it. And then I I get the Mudda Dasa and Patyayini Dasa systems from the same Jhora software, and then I either analyze it or predict it based upon whether the event has already happened. Then I'll analyze for the astrological justifications or reasons. If when I'm predicting an event to happen, then I analyze for the possibility for any similar type of an event to happen. So finally, what I want to conclude here is that if you know these four ways of techniques how to do it, then it would be a little bit easier for you to analyze an existing event, learn the same technique sequence of how the things have been done here in this presentation, and then you can continue further if you want to predict any future event to happen. I'm hoping that you like this presentation too, and thank you very much for watching this video.